They didn't just kill the competition, they killed the future. Because in the late 1960s, snowmobiling was about to get reverse gears, aluminum frames, and four-stroke engines that ran clean and quiet. All of it existed. All of it worked. All of it got buried. And the guys at Polaris, Ski-Doo, Arctic Cat, and Yamaha made sure those innovations stayed dead for 30 years so they could sell you the same outdated machines at higher prices. This isn't about brands that failed because they sucked. This is about startups that got crushed because they were too good, too early, and too dangerous to the status quo. Let me show you exactly how it happened. Starting with the Coleman. Yeah, that Coleman. The camping gear company, 1965, they jumped into snowmobiles with something nobody had seen before. Their Chaparral brand used a front ski steering system that was brilliantly simple, reliable, the kind of engineering that made sense. Within 3 years, they were selling 15,000 units annually. Not bad for a camping company. In 1968, they introduced the GT Marauder, first mass-produced snowmobile with a reverse gear. Not some clunky mechanical nightmare. An actual functional reverse system that worked. Just think about that, 1968. Most manufacturers were still figuring out how to make their sleds go forward reliably, and Coleman had reverse. That should have been game-changing. Bombardier didn't add electric reverse as standard until the mid-1990s. 27 years later. So what happened to Coleman? They sold the Ski-Rule division to a Canadian firm in 1973, dead by 1975. The reverse gear technology, bought up, shelved, and eventually reintroduced decades later as if it was some brilliant new innovation. You remember that feeling, right? When you had to get 3 buddies to help push your sled backward out of a tight spot because reverse didn't exist yet? Chaparral snowmobiles out of Wisconsin, started by 2 engineers who'd worked at Mercury Marine. These guys understood weight distribution and corrosion resistance. 1970, they launched the Super Brute 440, fully aluminum chassis, not just panels or cosmetic parts. The entire frame was aircraft-grade aluminum. Do you know what that meant? A sled that weighed 385 pounds dry. Most comparable machines were pushing 500 pounds. Chaparral's sled handled like a sport bike compared to the competition's dump trucks. And aluminum doesn't rust. You could leave it outside all winter, ride it through slush and salt, and the frame stayed pristine. They basically solved one of snowmobiling's biggest long-term problems right out of the gate. Sales were strong, dealers loved them, riders who tried them became instant converts. Then 1973 hit, financial troubles. Not because people stopped buying, because suppliers started demanding cash up front instead of extending credit. Someone was squeezing their supply chain. By 1975, Chaparral was liquidated. The aluminum chassis design? Arctic Cat started using similar tech in the late 1990s. Marketed it as revolutionary. 25 years too late. You probably spent how many weekends grinding rust off your tunnel, repainting frames that rotted through? There's something big manufacturers really don't want you to know. In the 1960s and early 70s, dozens of companies built snowmobile engines. Scorpion made their own. Polaris made their own. So did Arctic Cat and Ski-Doo initially. But smaller startups, they needed engine suppliers. Rotax in Austria became the go-to source. Reliable 2-strokes, good power-to-weight ratios. Companies like Boa Ski, Chaparral, and even early Ski-Doo models used Rotax engines. Then Bombardier bought Rotax in 1970. Suddenly, Bombardier owned the engine supplier that half the industry depended on. Now this is where it gets shady. Delivery times started stretching, prices went up, allocation numbers dropped for non-Bombardier customers. Boa Ski got acquired by Bombardier in 1971. Convenient timing. Any startup trying to compete with Ski-Doo now had to buy engines from their competitor's parent company. And Bombardier controlled who got engines, how many, and how fast. That's not competition, guys. That's simply controlled demolition. Makes you wonder how many better sleds you could have been riding, doesn't it? Let me tell you about Chet Benson and Snowflight, 1963, northern Minnesota. Benson was a tool and die maker who rode snowmobiles on weekends and hated the bogey wheel suspension every manufacturer used. Rough, harsh, beat you to death on anything but fresh powder. He invented the slide rail suspension. Two rails that the rear suspension slid along instead of wheels that bounced over bumps. Smoother, more responsive. Transformed how a sled handled rough terrain. He patented it. Started building snowflight machines in his shop. By 1967, he was producing 200 sleds a year. Small operation, but the ride quality was undeniable. Polaris came calling in 1968, wanted to license the technology. Benson said yes, figuring it would legitimize his innovation. He'd get royalties. Polaris would build better sleds. Win-win. Except that's not what happened. Polaris licensed the design, then buried it. They kept building bogey wheel sleds for another 5 years while sitting on Benson's patent. Meanwhile, Snowflight couldn't scale production because dealers wanted proven brands, not garage operations. By 1972, Snowflight folded. Benson's patent expired. And suddenly, in the late 1970s, slide rail suspension became the industry standard. Every major manufacturer adopted it, acted like they'd all developed it independently. Sadly, Benson never saw another dime. If you rode before 1978, you know exactly what those bogey wheels felt like. Your kidneys remember. Snow Cruiser Technologies out of Michigan, 1969. They built the Red Devil 850, twin-cylinder, liquid-cooled engine producing 92 horsepower. In 1969, that was absurd. Most sleds topped out at 35 horsepower. The Red Devil hit 112 miles per hour in testing. Fastest production snowmobile in the world. They had the dyno sheets. They had witnesses. They had magazine test riders who couldn't believe what they were experiencing. But wait, here's the problem. The American Snowmobile Association, the industry's main lobbying group, was controlled by the big manufacturers, and in 1970 they introduced voluntary speed limit guidelines, suggested that production sleds shouldn't exceed 65 miles per hour for safety reasons. Not a law, not a regulation, just a suggestion. Except dealerships started refusing to carry sleds that violated the guidelines. Insurance companies wouldn't cover them. Trail access got restricted. Snow Cruiser had built the fastest sled in the world, and the industry made it unsellable. They folded in 1972, 3 years of operation. The Red Devil's engine design? Yamaha released remarkably similar twin-cylinder, liquid-cooled engines in the SRX models during the 1990s. 25 years later, and once again, everybody acted like Yamaha had invented high-performance snowmobiles. How many times did someone tell you that your sled was too fast or too loud back then? Now you know why. Next comes Canadian Snowmobile Company in Quebec. Started 1960, small operation, but they focused on something nobody else cared about. Utility sleds for trappers and wilderness workers. Wide tracks, low centers of gravity, cargo capacity. These were workhorses built for people who needed snowmobiles as tools, not toys. By 1968, they'd carved out a profitable niche. Government forestry departments bought their sleds. Trapline workers swore by them. Sure, they weren't sexy, but they were essential. Then the Quebec government offered industrial development grants in 1970, money to expand manufacturing and create jobs. Canadian applied, got approved for $1.8 million. Of course, there's a catch. The grant required them to increase production by 400% within 2 years. Had to hire at least 200 workers. Build a new facility. They did it. New factory in 1971. Workforce expanded to 245 people. Production ramped up from 800 units to 3,200 units annually. But there was no market for 3,200 utility sleds. They'd built for a specialized audience. The grant forced them to overproduce for buyers who didn't exist. Inventory piled up. Cash flow collapsed. By December 1973, they filed for bankruptcy. The government grants came with strings that choked them. And who bought the assets? Yep, Bombardier. Absorbed the factory, kept some workers, killed the brand. Today, talk to any old rider about Boa Ski. They'll get this look in their eyes. Ontario Company, 1968. They did something genuinely radical. Built a 4-stroke snowmobile engine. Not a modified chainsaw motor. Not a 2-stroke screamer. An actual automotive-style 4-stroke. Quieter, cleaner emissions, better fuel economy, less oil smoke, more torque at low RPMs. The EPA noise regulations in 1973, Boa Ski sleds already passed. They were ahead of the curve by 5 years. But four-strokes were heavier, development costs were higher, and every other manufacturer was selling two-strokes. Parts suppliers, mechanics, dealerships, all built around two-stroke infrastructure. Boa Ski needed specialized training for dealers, different maintenance procedures, oil change intervals instead of premix ratios. It was smarter technology entering a system designed to reject it. They lasted until 1975, undercapitalized and unsupported. Yamaha introduced their first four-stroke snowmobile in 2002, the RX-1, marketed as revolutionary, clean, quiet, powerful. 27 years after Boa Ski proved it could be done. I know you're probably thinking, so what? Companies fail all the time. Yeah, they do, but this wasn't normal failure. If you notice, all these weren't bad ideas that the market rejected. These were really good ideas that got eliminated. Reverse gears, aluminum chassis, slide rail suspension, four-stroke engines, high-performance power plants. Every single one eventually became industry standard, but only after the Big Four controlled the market completely and could introduce them on their own timeline at premium prices. Think about it. Reverse gear in 1968, standard in the 1990s. Aluminum chassis in 1970, widely adopted in the late 90s. Four-stroke engines in 1968, mainstream by 2002. 30 years of artificial delay. That's your entire riding prime. From when you bought your first sled to when your kids started riding, come on, all of this wasn't accidental. It was the playbook. Step 1, flood the market, overproduce, drive margins down. Small companies can't compete with loss leaders. Step 2, control the supply chain. Own the engine manufacturers. Lock up aluminum suppliers. Make startups dependent on your infrastructure. Step 3, use industry associations to set voluntary standards that happen to disadvantage competitors. Speed limits, noise regulations, safety guidelines, all reasonable sounding, all weaponized. Step 4, when a startup develops something genuinely innovative, either license it and bury it, or wait for them to fail and buy the patents for pennies. Step 5, reintroduce those innovations decades later as premium features on expensive models. And of course, it worked. By 1986, only 4 major manufacturers remained: Polaris, Arctic Cat, Ski-Doo, Yamaha. Everyone else gone. This is what kills me. Imagine if Coleman's reverse gear had become standard in 1970. How many accidents could have been prevented? How many riders wouldn't have gotten stuck or injured trying to maneuver sleds without reverse? Imagine if Chaparral's aluminum chassis had been adopted industry-wide. Lighter sleds, better handling, machines that lasted decades without frame rot. Imagine if Boa Ski's four-stroke engines had become the norm in 1975. Cleaner trails, quieter riding, better fuel economy, less pollution. All of it possible, all of it proven, all of it killed because it threatened the business model. And yeah, eventually these innovations did arrive. But 30 years late means an entire generation of riders never experienced them. It means environmental damage that didn't need to happen. It means accidents that could have been avoided. The startups didn't fail because they were wrong. They failed because they were right too early. Now I want to hear from you. Which dead startup do you wish had survived? Coleman with their reverse gear? Chaparral's aluminum sleds? Maybe some local builder from your hometown that nobody remembers anymore. Drop the brand name below. And be honest, do you think snowmobiling would be better today if even one of these companies had made it? If you want more videos like this, hit that subscribe button and check out the next video here.